I've got my copy of the Queen's English, and very beautiful it is too. It's beautifully put together, I must say. Is it your first book?
So yes, the Queen's English is my debut book. Yes, there is the version in the US and this is the version for the UK. But yes, the Queen's English is my debut book.
And when did it come out in the US? I'm assuming it's already out in the US.
Yes, it came out February 2nd of this year.
All right.
The UK version comes out tomorrow, so I'm really excited about that.
Good. And tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, you're a new writer. Give us a bit of background on you.
Absolutely. So I'm Chloe O. Davis. I am a creator, a performer, and debut author of the Queen's English, the LGBTQIA+ dictionary of lingo and colloquial phrases. But I'm just an all-around creative. So a little bit about my background is actually come from the entertainment industry, whether it be dance or acting. So I can honestly say that the idea to write the dictionary came from being in an artistic environment. Actually started researching for the dictionary in 2006. And the idea spawned because I was part of a dance company called the Philadelphia Dance Company in Philadelphia, USA, also known as Philadanco. And a lot of the men in the company were part of the ballroom scene, right? So we know the ballroom scene now, it's become very mainstream because of RuPaul's Drag Race and also Pose and even Legendary on HBO. But also a big mainstream introduction was through the documentary Paris is Burning, which is absolutely wonderful. But a lot of the words like fierce, over, slay, work, these words, back in 2006, weren't necessarily mainstream, but what I was finding is that, ballroom has such a vibrant culture when it comes to expression through words and language. And I was really, really interested in that, and also just learning the history of the ballroom scene. And so that's what kind of got me started, because I told a friend, I was like, this is like a fully developed language and there needs to be a dictionary for it. And I was challenged and they were like, okay, well, when you write it, call it the Queen's English. And we know this idea of the queen, right? Queen, whether it's associated in the ballroom scene being a butch queen, which is a cisgender gay male, or if it's a femme queen, which is usually a trans feminine or transgender woman, or the drag queen, right? Or just a queen in general, which is an honorific term that people in the family being, if you're a part of the, gay and queer community, you're but it's an honorific term like, hey, queen, or yes, queen, it is celebratory. And I started to dive deep into learning more about language and learning more particularly about why language is created. And first and foremost, I say when it comes to the umbrella of the LGBTQIA+ community, it is because we need to articulate an experience to truly affirm ourselves, because mainstream has not given us that opportunity. So we need to take it for ourselves. So that's why language is created, whether it's coded or whether it's forthright. But particularly when it comes to language surrounding the Black gay community or the Black queer community or the Black trans community, particularly in the ballroom scene, it was a place to give yourself self-worth, right? Because it's particularly in the 1970s, late 1960s, the ballroom scene was created to give a safe space to those who were Black and queer, right? Yes. Those who were dealing with homophobia, transphobia, and racism, you know what I mean? And young people who were rejected from their homes because of their identity or their sexual orientation. And so the ballroom was created. And me just learning about the essence of the words, but the essence of the culture and the history just took over me. And I was really, really excited about diving into culture, particularly Black culture, particularly, culture that was not taught to me, you know what I mean? Because of whatever stigma. And then also being a Black bisexual woman, I wanted to create a resource that affirmed who I am, right? I find that there weren't many resources in general that articulated experience that were non-heteronormative, right? Non-heteronormative, that word, if it's not heterosexual, if it's not cisgender, we don't want anything to do about it. And I was just tired of that because I wanted to fully understand and who I am and stand, you know, affirmed and proud in that. So I dug for resources, you know, I wanted to learn more words. I wanted to learn history. And I think because of that, it just propelled into this larger scale of diving into language that truly articulates humanity, right? And it just so happened that, you know, it's the LGBTQI plus community and the diversity within the gay and queer community and the intersectionality with that and why words are important, you know, and the evolution and the etymology of words. So it's interesting, right? That I am, you know, I am a debut author, even though I've been working on this material for over 15 years, but it was in tandem of being a creator and in this artistic world of being a dancer and actor that allowed me to be in such a culture that introduced me to the diversity that lives, the diversity of culture and identities, but also language that lives into this larger umbrella of being gay and queer. You know, so I talk about the ballroom scene, but there's the leather community, you know, there's the lesbian community, there's the Black lesbian community versus the white lesbian community, right? There's the Black gay male community versus the white gay male community, right? So, you know, for instance, otters, twunks, wolves, that's very white, you know what I mean?
Yes.
That's not necessarily, you know, Black language, Black gay language, you know, and the same thing with lesbian, like Black lesbians, it's like diva femme, it's stud, it's soft stud, it's not, you know, you can say butch, but it's not really that, you're a stud, you know, so it's just language. I love not only language, I love the stories behind the language, you know, that's what really connected me to writing this and seeing the vast identities, but also the myriad of communities that are represented under this larger gay and queer spectrum. And I think what was most important, I was just really tired of not having resources that I articulated my identity, but tired of having resources that was very focused on one spectrum, one focus. And a lot of times that was from like a white male perspective, right? And that does not cover who I am, and that does not cover who many of us are. And so it was just diving deeper into uncovering, again, the myriad of ways we identify, period, you know? So that's from 2006 to 2021.
And do you feel that the wider, broader LGBT community will be accepting of the book? Because there's a lot of Black cultural idioms and phrases within the book, which is beautiful to see. But how is in the US, how have the wider gay community accepted the book so far?
Well, it's had great reviews, several ways. First, it's been received greatly because if you're in the community, you feel seen. It was very much about objective that I showed the diversity in identities, in gender expressions, in sexual orientations, romantic orientations, because again, you don't find those type of resources that is inclusive like that, that's diverse. It's usually, again, gonna be focused in one lens. And I wanted to show the myriad of identities to really show the spectrum of humanity. And also I wanted to give credit where credit is due. So you talked a little bit about, you know, the references to Black American culture, right? Or Black culture. The thing about it is there were things in here called usage notes, and it articulated that this word originated from Black American culture, but has been appropriated by the larger LGBTQIA plus community.
Exactly.
And mainstream. And that was the other part of like having a platform and using it for the better good and understanding that it's larger than these letters. It's actually about documenting history, again, that has not been documented in this way, right? To try to eradicate this idea of erasure of a culture and their contribution to the world, to society. You know, as a Black American woman, you know, I haven't necessarily seen sources that say, you know, this is mine, you know what I mean? Because a lot of times mainstream pop culture takes that away, as we see with words like shade, read over, right? Now, I've actually heard these terms, you know, on the news, right? By people who are not part of the community, but they say it because it's now come mainstream. But the thing about it is the ownership, you know, the ownership and the credibility. So I was very adamant about making sure these usage notes were throughout the entire dictionary, saying if something came from Black American culture, saying if something came from the Black gay community, saying if something came from, you know, the Black trans community, but also saying that this word originated in the leather scene, or this word originated or is commonly used in the non-binary, gender non-conforming community. It was truly important to me that credit was given where credit is due. A lot of times, you know, particularly Black American culture, it's stripped, you know what I mean? It's taken, or sometimes it's saying, okay, we know that you did it, but we're just gonna brush that under the rug. That's not just with our language, that's also with our music, that's with our style, that's what, you know, appropriation is real. And this was an opportunity to use a platform to really credit, you know, the communities that created these words.
When I think of so much American culture, most of it I see is actually Black culture, Black American culture, but it becomes, as you say, appropriated, and it becomes American, and the source of it is never really identified. One of the things I really like about the book, and I don't know if you conceived it this way, is that it's like I said before, it's beautifully put together. There's a whole range of illustrations. Did you conceive it this way when you thought about a dictionary of LGBT phrases in the beginning?
Yeah. So, well, in the beginning, I was writing, but I said I was going to write a dictionary, but it was one of those things like, are you really going to write a dictionary? I put it down, you know, so many times. But when I wanted to create it, I knew it had to be engaging. I knew it had to be something that, you know, people will pick up and read it. I didn't want to write something that no one would read, you know what I mean? And let's just talk about the time frame, like 2006 or 2010. You know, we were still, societies, whether it's the UK or the US, these is, you know, our societies were still figuring out how we were going to, or how the society was going to accept and bring visibility to non-heteronormative identities. You know what I mean? Still pushing for marriage equality, still pushing for equality, period, right? As we still are. So when I knew I wanted to bring this to surface, it needed to be engaging, and also being a creative. I knew that I needed to be visually appealing. So in my mind, I said, I remember around like 2015, once I had a nice chunk of like words that have been, you know, had been researched and kind of grouped together. I want to say about like 300, 400 words. I remember talking to a friend, and he asked, like, well, what do you envision? I said, I want this to be a beautiful book, a beautiful coffee table book. And I remember he saying, he said, well, what do you see? I said, I see like a scrapbook, I see pictures, I see illustrations, I see tutorials, how to. I want this to be, I see history lessons, because it's not just about, you know, the words, it's about the etymology of the words, and it's about the history in our culture, right? So that's why you do see the spread on the Harlem Renaissance, and you do see how, you know, LGBTQIA plus individuals in the military and how that has, you know, progressed over the years. And you do see the lessons on, you know, the HIV and AIDS crisis. Like, that's important because that is part of the language, that's part of the culture. And we cannot understand the language without understanding the history and the culture of it.
And the experiences of people, I think.
And that's exactly what the dictionary is. It is a dictionary, but it is 4-dimensional. You're feeling the experiences of the people that represent these identities and words, who coin these words, and you see that through its usage notes. But you also get to visually see it. So that's where you're seeing the illustrations and the colors and the pride flags. I wanted it to be, again, inclusive, engaging. And I worked with 4 illustrators. One main illustrator, his name is Troy Lambert. We worked together for about 2 years with crafting illustrations that could really articulate and engage readers into the terms, right? And also bringing light to the dictionary. So the dictionary is also, it's educational, but it's funny. It's comical, it's lighthearted, it's a celebration, but it also dives deep into, you know, the challenges and sometimes trauma that has been experienced when we talk about violence and hate crimes. But I really wanted it to be this like a scrapbook of celebration and identity. And so with the illustrations, with the colors, with, you know, going deeper into representing all the pride flags, right? It's not just the pride flag, Roy G. Biv, because Gilbert Baker in 1978 created the first pride flag that had 8 colors, but there's also the asexual pride flag. There's the trans pride flag. There's the genderqueer pride flag. There's the lesbian pride flag. And I wanted to make sure all of those things were represented. So again, when you say, how has this book been received? It's been received so well from those in the community, again, saying, thank you for seeing me. I love this resource. I wished I had this resource when, I was younger, but I have it now to still, explore who I am. I love it when those who are allies are also saying, thank you for this, because now, those questions that I wanted to ask about pronouns and, chosen names and things like that, I have a guide on understanding how to do these things. And then I love it more so when, parents, are very accepting and saying, I want to learn more about my child. Like I had this one email, a woman reached out to me about her son. She said, I've been reading through your dictionary and I feel so excited and ready to dive in even more because I understand my son better, I understand my trans son better, and I will understand his community. So this is the type of information that I receive, that, lots of parents who want to know more about their children, and young people just saying, thank you, this is helping me come out. Also, not even just young people, but older individuals, who are saying, I actually am learning more words and I feel like I want to evolve in my identity. Because again, this is a celebration of human identity. And it just so happened that those letters LGBTQIA+, is the staple on the front. But honestly, this is just reaching out for us to understand our world is not binary. Our world is not black and white. Our world is not in a box, but it's explosive. And our differences and our similarities is what makes the heartbeat of our society.
Are you trying to get this into schools at all? Because it seems to me that it would be a fitting place to have it.
Absolutely. So I actually am working first with universities, and yes, there have been universities and colleges that are bringing this into their curriculum for the next school year, which I'm very excited about. A lot of gender studies programs, women's studies programs, and LGBT studies programs, in addition to psychology and sociology programs. So yes, that is happening. And I've actually started to have conversations even with high schoolers, I think you all call them secondary school students, and just having these really open conversations. It's called, brave questions, safe spaces, right? I think that that's really needed in our younger secondary high school settings, because they need to be able to say what's on their minds, articulate, try to articulate who they are, and be okay with that, instead of being bullied or being told that their identity is not right,
silenced.
Exactly, and that's the thing. No more silencing, no more muting identity. That no more. You know what I mean? So this is kind of that book to start those important conversations around inclusivity and diversity and sexual orientation and romantic orientation, gender identity and expression. And I'm also hopefully working soon on a youth edition for the dictionary that will focus on through the lens of our younger youth around 12 and younger, things like that. But yes, this dictionary actually is will be part of several university and college programs.
And do you foresee any kind of America can be quite religious and right-wing religion. So do you see any kind of kickback for this at all?
I think the subject in general, there's going to be kickback. I mean, right now in America, as well as in the UK, rights are still being fought for when we talk about trans equality, right? And rights, particularly for our TGNC youth, right, to compete in sports that, that are appropriate with their gender identity, their gender expression. So yes, there's going to be kickback. It's interesting. I had a talk in Florida, right? And that's one of the states that, is pushing, anti-trans legislation. And I did have a talk, and I was actually warned prior to that, there could possibly be some challenges during this talk, but we will try to do our best to, make sure that, we can control those things. And, immediately I was like, okay, this is also what I signed up for. This is not supposed to be easy. I didn't create this to, not ruffle feathers. I created this to have a voice. Zorona Hurston, she's my shiro. She said, speak now so you can speak again. And that is what I do. That is what I'm doing. I'm okay with, saying, hey, there's other ways. There's other ways of going about things that have not necessarily had the opportunity to be seen, to be heard, to be visible. And I want to give that visibility. So that's what I'm doing with the Queen's English.
And so you started to prepare this book in 2006. At what point did you find a publisher before you started to develop some of the pictorial content? Or did you need to find a publisher first before you spend money, perhaps, on creating that kind of visual?
I said this was going to be done with or without a publisher. I was actually working with Troy Lambert, I spoke with before, and we were creating content. And of course, I was soliciting to publishers because, in my mind, I'm thinking this is like the best thing. I think it's needed. It's a resource. It hasn't been done yet. Of course, right? But that was not the case. It was very challenging. It was very no, 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 no. And so I just believed in it so much. And I also had the support of my community that believed in it also, that we were like, well, we'll do it ourselves, And so actually Troy and I, we worked on it. We worked on that content. We worked on the illustrations. And I want to say 2018 was Troy, he actually was like, Chloe, let's try it again. You know what I mean? Let's get things into place, literary agent, and let's see what happens. And I found a wonderful literary agent, Leela Campoli, throwing her out there. She believed in this book, completely believed in this book, and she took it and ran with it. And it was, sent out to the big publishing houses. And I'm very honored that the first edition, the US edition, was with Penguin Random House, but Clarkson Powers, the imprint. And Sarah Neville was my editor then. And we just continued to create and create and create and grow this dictionary into over 800 terms, Wow. And we went through so many sensitivities. And that's what I want to say. It's really important, like this, to have content like this, you have to go through sensitivities. You have to get perspectives, right? Because, I'm defining words. Yes, I'm being a lexicographer. Yes. However, it's important that, we give truth and validation to the myriad of ways a term can be defined. And that was important to me, just like any dictionary, right? That was really important to me. So this dictionary didn't come out until I felt 1,000% that it was right. That it was here, it was ready with the colors. Those colors are handpicked, literally looking at a color scale, cutting out colors to put them together. The illustrations, are all focused on telling the story of the dictionary, telling the story of the individuals who created these words, right? So yes, I was gonna do it with or without a publisher, but I am definitely honored and blessed that, someone else believed into this project as much as I did. And I think that's the important thing. I didn't do this alone. It was because of other people believing in this and believing the value of this resource and believing that this is a timeless piece of work that really makes it important. And as far as religion goes, there is actually, they're called interstitial spreads, right? So I talked about the HIV and AIDS crisis. There's one on queer parents and the queer family dynamic, just, diving into that story, what that looks like, because it's a very unique experience, LGBT, in the military. I love this other spread called the genderbread person that breaks down, identity, in 4 quadrants. It's gender identity, gender expression, sexual orientation, and your sexual anatomy, and all of them, work independently of each other, right? But I love this, this particular spread, though. It's called LGBTQIA plus and believers, because I'm a believer, right? I know there is a higher power, And I know that's why I'm here, because I'm standing in my purpose from the higher power that gave me this purpose. And the thing about it is, just because I'm a Black bisexual woman doesn't mean that God is not shining on me, is not giving me, you know, the tools I need to do his work, right? So that's the thing I wanted to write about, you know, whether you're Muslim or Christian or Buddhist or all of the other myriad of ways that we understand the higher power, that doesn't negate who you are, your identity. You know, the things are not separate. You know, they live in the same world. So there's actually, you know, a spread in there that say, you know, LGBTQI plus, you know, religious believers can also be in the same world. You know what I mean? So sure, there's going to always be pushback. And, you know, when you create something, there's going to be pushback. There's just going to be people that believe in it, people that don't. But what I feel is, you know, I feel very confident about the importance of this resource. And when I continue to get the feedback from, you know, people all around the country and now even around the world, that you feel seen, you feel heard, you feel like this resource is important, that it's helpful, then that makes me feel like I've done my job.
I think the resources, you said it was timeless, but it's also very timely, because it seems now is the perfect time to have it ready. So you had to start in 2006 to get it ready for now. So you're right in the moment. But also what I want to say, or what I want to ask, you seem very knowledgeable about, you know, gender identity. Were you this way at the beginning of this process, or have you learned, you know, the language, everything through the process?
Exactly. I've learned everything through the process. And so I think that makes me vet the dictionary even more, because it helped me stand more affirmed in who I am and have the language to articulate that experience. I can say you know, before the dictionary, but, you know, going from, you know, heteroflexible to being bicurious, also being bisexual, but semi-closeted, right? Going through that phase of standing most authentic, polyamory, and understanding that I'm demisexual, right? And so it's just these words. So I can stand here and say, yes, I'm a proud, you know, biromantic, demisexual, bisexual person here, but it was because of the evolution of me diving into these terms, having these wonderful open conversations and discussions and interviews with people all over the country, to dive into identity. So no, I wasn't as affirmed in the beginning, you know, but it was through this process that I became more firm. And now I really advocate for, you know, understanding the spectrum of human identity, right? And I'm also just very proud of myself, because proud Pride Month, but no, I am proud of myself, because, you know, you have to share your stories, you have to share your testimony, because you have to realize that you are the anchor for someone else, right? So by me doing me, going through my evolution, you know, and being open about that journey. So in the dictionary, I talk about that, you know, I talk about that in my introduction, the evolution of who I am. And I remember a friend of mine asked me, you know, because he was like, he knew I was, you know, bisexual, well, with both men and women. So he was going to say, well, how do you identify? And then I wanted to be like, well, labels, right? You know, it's kind of like, well, why do I need a label? And I love, and I think this is going to stay with me forever. He said, you don't need a label. I just want you to stand in your authentic truth. And that's what I want to encourage everyone. You know, it's not about labels. It's not about labeling yourself. It's about using words to help you guide your journey on your identity. You know, you can stay there, you can float around, you can come back, but it is ever evolving. Identity is ever evolving. And that's what I encourage. I just encourage everyone to, whether you identify now as cisgender and heterosexual, but still explore that identity, because it's not just about your sexual orientation. It's not just about your, you know, gender identity, but, you know, what is your romantic identity? You know what I mean? What is your relationship identity? You know, those are the things that we don't always get to talk about. It's not black and white. It's not one or two. It's not in a box, you know.
And so you're saying these things can be different. Your relationship
Absolutely.
identity could be different to, you know, your kind of sexual identity.
Yes.
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 That's interesting.
that's what I was gonna say. So I'm gonna say this really fast. So we have gender, right? So your gender identity is what lives here. It is what you believe what you are, what you believe yourself to be, right? For a long time, it was very heteronormative. It was the gender was two ideas, binary. It was, you know, male, female, right? Boy, girl, right? And it was based off of your sexual anatomy, right? What the doctor assigned you at birth. So either the doctor checked boy or checked girl. Actually, in 2018, the first intersex birth certificate was issued in Colorado. But usually the doctor would check boy or girl, right? So that means you were assigned female at birth or assigned male at birth. However, just because you were assigned female at birth or assigned male at birth based on your sexual anatomy, exactly, it does not define your gender identity. It does not define your gender identity, nor does it define your gender expression. Your expression is what is your outer experience, your appearance, right? What are you doing outside? How does the world see you, you know? Do you look masculine, but wear nail polish, you know, and fierce pump in a heel? You know what I mean? But it's your gender expression. It can be fluid, but, you know, we've, again, lived in these binary ideas that you have to be masculine or feminine, you have to be male or female. It's not the case, you know? And then your sexual orientation is, again, different. It does not define your gender identity. It does not define your gender expression. It's just what you're attracted to or what you're not attracted to, right? Because there's someone who's allosexual, who is someone who is a sexual person, and someone who's asexual, and someone who's not a sexual person, and someone who is a demisexual like myself. I like float in between, you know? And then there's your romantic orientation, because not everyone is sexual. Some people are romantic, you know, and vice versa. Not everyone is romantic. They can just be sexual. And then this is where I'm saying your relationship orientation. Is it monogamous? Is it poly? You know, is it open? Is it closed? Does it vary? It just depends on you and your partner. Is it vanilla? Is it kink?
I'm learning quite a lot here, actually, just
Yes.
listening to you, because you've opened certain spaces in my own mind, just hearing the various descriptions, and you make it sound so inviting, actually, and the ideas and the concepts. So I just shifted something in my mind that I was having a discussion with a friend of mine the other day. Who is this, the young man, the American musician, what's his name? The very popular gay, came out as gay about a year or so ago. What's his name? Young guy, dark complexion.
Is it Little Nas X?
Yes, Little Nas. Is it Nas or
Nas?
You say Nas.
Oh, what do you say? How do you say it?
N-A-S?
No, it's Little Nas X.
Oh, listen, I would say Nas X, but you probably it's your language. So, but you know, recently I was having a discussion with someone because I saw a video of his, and I thought that he was performing like Britney Spears, and it made me feel uncomfortable.
Okay.
Because he doesn't look like Britney Spears or Janet Jackson. But just listening to your description of you talking about how someone might behave compared to how they look made me actually, it made it click in my mind and made me realize, actually, so what, Paul? That's him. I mean, it may mean at the end of the day that I'm still not attracted to that, but
and that's okay.
That's fine. And he's totally fine to be that, you know, if that's his expression, that's his expression. So yeah,
exactly.
Sorry,
yeah.
I just became comfortable with it, just listening to you describe it.
No, I think this is great. And so just like we're having these, you know, conversations and we're learning, I think that's exactly what I wanted to do with the dictionary. That's how I want the dictionary to feel. Like when you're reading it, it feels like the conversation you're having with me now, you know, because that's how I wanted to write it. You know, yes, it's scholarly. Yes. I mean, the term, the part of speech, the, you know, definitions, the usage notes, synonym, all of that's there. But I also need it to be engaging because this is material that I think is really important. And I just want to make sure that I'm able to teach it in a way that feels that you can understand, number one,
Mhm.
right? And number two, that you receive it. You know, I want you to receive it at your own pace, at your own time, you know, but receive it, ask the questions. That's why I think it's important to not only just have the dictionary, but to also continue this conversation, whether it be on podcast or like we're doing right now. But I just think it's really, really important to continue to have these conversations, because it's okay. Just like you said, that wasn't your cup of tea, right? It's like, that's not me. That doesn't mean you dismiss it, you know? That doesn't mean you know, negate it. You're just like, that's just not me. And that's
It doesn't mean I'm not proud of his achievements and what he's doing.
Exactly, exactly. And I think that's the other thing too, you know, you mentioned why so varied, right? Why so many communities represented in this dictionary. And I think that's the thing. I want us to all acknowledge the diversity that lives within the community, you know, because it's not always acknowledged. And I just want to make sure we acknowledge that diversity, so that way we are all learning, we are all evolving, and we're all growing, because that's what's going to push humanity forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, I see that Black Gay Blog was listed. Where did you come across us?
Research. So yeah, so one thing I was going to say too, having that resource in the back of the dictionary was so important. There's the UK, of course, with the UK resources, and the US with the US resources. But I needed to dive in to find the resources, not the ones that are just mainstream, you know, that gets all the credibility, or, you know, that maybe has the money to be more visible. I needed to dive deeper and find the communities that help the diversity that I see, you know, find the communities that are focused on, you know, Black, gay, and queer experiences. You know what I mean? Find the communities that are focused on, you know, supporting LGBTQI plus youth homelessness. Find the communities that support being Muslim and queer. I needed to find those type of communities, and I wanted to bring together this resource. So yes, I found you because I love the work that you all are doing. I think it's exceptional. It's important, again, to have spaces that articulate our experiences. It's just different. You know, it's different. The intersectionality of our identity, you know, it's just a different experience. And we have certain needs. We have certain needs, and we have certain desires, and we need a community to support that. So that's why I found you all. But also I wanted to say, with the UK version, her name is Paula Akpan, and she is the forward writer of the dictionary, and also assisted me with UK research. So I appreciate Paula as well for her contributions with the UK version. But yes, it was important to me that I find the resources, you know, so I love research too. So I'll keep going down a rabbit hole until I feel like I caught it.
And did you know JJ Revlon before he wrote the notes on Ballroom, or not?
So again, you know, this is the UK version. So research had already been done on the ballroom scene, but it was important that I also dived into the ballroom scene in the UK, because it is an evolution of the ballroom scene that we know from the US, or particularly from the city. And so I was really excited that he was interested in doing this. And so actually my editor, Mireille Harper, she's with Square Peg, reached out to him, you know, explaining what the dictionary is about. And there's a section on the ballroom scene, and we wanted to dive deeper into the UK scene and how it got there, you know what I mean? And so JJ, you know, we had a great conversation. We vibed. I'm excited to eventually meet both Paula and JJ when I eventually come over to the UK. But I appreciate both of them for, you know, advocating for this book and just loving it, you know what I mean, as soon as they learned about it. So that's also, I guess, a testament of how the book is received. You know, I just say open it, just open it.
And so there are two versions. There's a UK and the US versions. Any other? Is it in Spanish or, you know, another language?
Not yet, but we can talk it up. We can talk it up. I do hope that it will continue to expand, and absolutely, and additionally, it will expand in volumes and editions, because, you know, language will continue to evolve, as it should. And I want to continue to document that. But I feel really good about where it is now, because it does show language that, again, comes from, you know, the hundreds, you know, to language of 2021. So it's just showing that evolution already.
It is a bit like a history book in a sense.
Yeah, I like to say that it's identity, history, and pride. You know, that's kind of put it together. Then that's kind of how I think of it, because again, I think it's the layers. You know, I just couldn't write a dictionary. It had to be full of. It needed to be explosive. Culture. I love culture. Yeah.
So what's next? I mean, the Queen's English we have, and we'll have a new volume in a year or two. But what's next for you? What's the next book?
You know, that's so great. I'm really interested in uncovering what is unrecognizable, or what not is always seen. I'm really interested in that, giving voice to that. So I think I'm gonna start working on like a book that kind of uncovers, again, human identity, but more so with the layers, you know, like kind of see me. So like diving into someone's identity and who they are and those many layers, you know, whether it be someone who's, you know, multiracial and who also is, you know, the first doctor in their family, you know, just uncovering real people and real stories. But the stories don't have to, like, we don't need to have a TikTok, and we don't need to, you know, be on the cover of a magazine, but these are just kind of the celebration of real people. And that's what I want to write about, because our stories aren't always, you know, written, but because they're not glam enough. But it's not about it being glam, it's about being real. You know, that's the connective tissue. And so I think that's what I'm going to dive into next.
Good. Chloe, I'm going to say thank you very much for your time. I'm going to put this together in some form or fashion, and I'll let you know. But really, I really appreciate the time and talking so eloquently about your new book, The Queen's English. And yeah, I hope we see you when you come to the UK.
Absolutely. Oh, we absolutely have to get together and have a cup of tea.
That would be nice. That would be nice. You take good care.
Well, thank you, Paul. Thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. Take good care. Bye now.
Bye.